Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Learn with Me. I'm Deborah Hanson, and today we're going to look at AP Psychology 4.2, Attitude Formation and Attitude Change, Part 2. So we've already done CED question number 1. That was our Part 1, and now we're going to look at the second CED question. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's hit that like and subscribe button for me. Really appreciate it. The numbers are going up, and it makes me really happy, and it helps me a lot. So thank you so much for doing that. Okay, let's get started. So on this slide, you're going to see the key terms for 4.2. Both Part 1 and Part 2 words are on the slide. I'm going to do a separate video, as I always do, with the definitions and real-life examples to help you be able to make your flashcards or wherever you put these notes for you to be able to know and be able to apply these key terms on test day. This is really important, okay? So CED question number 2 is explain how belief, perseverance, and cognitive dissonance apply to attitude formation and change. So we're going to look at all the essential knowledge that the College Board wants you to know for test day. So let's dive into that right now. Let's start with belief perseverance. It's a fascinating concept that explains why people sometimes hold on to beliefs even when they're presented with clear evidence disproving them. Here's a definition. Belief perseverance happens when a person's belief remain unchanged, even in the face of contradictory evidence. Instead of adjusting their view, they cling to the original belief. So why does this happen? Well, the key reason is that people have a natural tendency to favor existing beliefs, and changing one's attitude often feels uncomfortable, so it's easier to dismiss evidence that challenges their view. Now, let's look at the connection to confirmation bias. Belief perseverance is very closely linked to confirmation bias, which is the tendency to seek out information that supports what we already believe and ignore anything that contradicts it. Here's an example. Someone who believes in a health myth, like cold weather causes colds, might dismiss scientific evidence debunking this myth. Instead, they focus on personal experiences or anecdotes that support their belief. So why does this all matter? Understanding belief perseverance helps us recognize why people resist changing their attitudes. It also highlights the importance of presenting evidence in a way that encourages open-mindedness and critical thinking. Belief perseverance shows us how stubborn attitudes can be, especially when paired with confirmation bias. By being aware of this tendency, we can work to challenge our own biases and approach evidence with a more open mind. Let's start with belief perseverance. This is a fascinating concept that explains why people sometimes hold on to beliefs when they're presented with clear evidence that disproves them. Let's look at the definition first. Belief perseverance happens when a person's beliefs remain unchanged even in the face of contradictory evidence. Instead of adjusting their views, they cling to their original belief. So why does this happen? The key reason it happens is that people have a natural tendency to favor existing beliefs. Changing one's attitude will often feel uncomfortable, so it's much easier to dismiss evidence that challenges their worldview. So now let's look at how it connects to confirmation bias. Belief perseverance is closely linked to confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that supports what we already believe and ignore anything that contradicts it. So here's an example. Someone who believes in a health myth, like cold weather causes colds, might dismiss the scientific evidence debunking this myth. Instead, they focus on personal experiences or anecdotes that support their own belief. Why does this matter? Well, understanding belief perseverance helps us recognize why people resist changing their attitudes. It also highlights the importance of presenting evidence in a way that encourages open-mindedness and critical thinking. So belief perseverance shows us how stubborn attitudes can be, especially when paired with confirmation bias. By being aware of this tendency, we can work together to challenge our own biases and approach evidence with a more open mind. Now let's look at cognitive dissonance. It's a concept that explains why we sometimes feel mental discomfort when our actions don't match our beliefs or attitudes. So here's the definition. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort or tension that arises when a person's attitudes and actions are in conflict. This conflict creates a sense of unease that people are motivated to resolve. So basically, to reduce this comfort, people will often try to align their attitudes and their actions. So they might change their attitude to match their behavior, or change the behavior to match their attitude, or simply justify their behavior to make it feel more acceptable. Let's look at an example of this. A smoker knows that smoking is harmful to their health. That's the attitude, but continues to smoke. That's the action. This conflict creates cognitive dissonance. So therefore, to reduce the discomfort, they might justify their behavior by saying, smoking helps me relax. Or maybe they'll even downplay the risks by thinking that, there's plenty of people that live a really long life after smoking or while smoking. So they'll justify that by saying it's okay to continue. Why does this matter? Understanding cognitive dissonance helps explain why people sometimes rationalize behaviors or resist changing attitudes. Recognizing this process can help us be more self aware, help us make more consistent decisions. So, cognitive dissonance is all about resolving the tension between what we believe and how we act. And by recognizing when this happens, we can make changes that align our attitudes and our behaviors more effectively. Now that you understand belief perseverance, let's look at how it influences the formation and change of attitudes. This concept helps explain why people often feel resistant to changing their opinions, even when they're faced with clear evidence. People form attitudes based on their personal experiences or what they learn from trusted sources like family or friends or media. But once these beliefs are established, they become deeply rooted, making them resistant to change. So, belief perseverance kicks in when people encounter contradictory evidence. Instead of adjusting their attitude, they hold on to their original belief, often dismissing or rationalizing the new information. How does a change happen? Well, shifting attitudes influenced by belief perseverance isn't easy. It requires one, overwhelming evidence that is difficult to ignore, or two, repeated exposure to alternative perspectives over time. Even then, the process can be slow because belief perseverance creates a mental barrier to accept new ideas. Let's look at the real life impact of this. Belief perseverance plays a significant role in polarized debates. People stick to their opinion on political, social, or scientific issues, making compromise difficult. Or two, resistance to progress. Whether it's adopting new technologies or accepting scientific advancements, belief perseverance can slow social change. Belief perseverance shows us that why changing attitudes is so challenging. By understanding this concept, we can approach conversations with patience and empathy, helping to encourage open-mindedness and growth. Now that you understand how belief perseverance influences attitudes, let's explore how cognitive dissonance influences the formation and change of attitudes. This concept explains why we strive for consistency between what we believe and how we act, and what happens when there's conflict. So, cognitive dissonance encourages us to align our actions and our attitudes to avoid discomfort. When there's no conflict, attitudes form naturally to support actions, creating a sense of harmony. So, for example, someone who values education might work hard in school to reflect that belief. So, when actions and attitudes conflict, dissonance occurs. So, to reduce this tension, one, we need to change attitudes. If a person cannot justify their actions, they may adjust their beliefs to align with their behavior. So, for example, a person who feels guilty about unhealthy habits may adopt a healthier lifestyle to reduce dissonance. Or secondly, rationalizing their actions. They might justify their behavior to avoid changing it. For example, someone who smokes might say, "Oh, it's not that bad. Lots of people live long lives while smoking." So let's look at the real life impact of cognitive dissonance. One, it encourages personal growth because by prompting attitude changes, it helps people align their actions with their values. And secondly, it reinforces harmful behaviors. Rationalizing actions can lead to excuses that maintain unhealthy or unproductive habits. So understanding cognitive dissonance helps us recognize why we feel tension when actions and attitudes conflict and how this process can drive both positive change and self-justification. Now let's talk about how the concepts of belief perseverance and cognitive dissonance can be applied to real-life scenarios in education, health, and social issues. These concepts help us understand and address attitudes and behaviors effectively. Let's start with education. In classrooms, belief perseverance can make it difficult for students to let go of misconceptions, even when they're presented with clear evidence. For example, a student might cling to outdated scientific ideas because they were taught them earlier. Now, teachers can use strategies like interactive discussions and evidence-based activities to challenge the biases and encourage critical thinking. In the health industry, cognitive dissonance plays a big role in promoting healthier behaviors by aligning attitudes and actions. So, for example, an anti-smoking campaign will often highlight the gap between a person's knowledge that smoking is harmful, that's their attitude, and their continued smoking, the action. So by emphasizing these conflicts, campaigns like this motivate people to reduce dissonance by quitting smoking or adopting healthier behaviors. And lastly, let's look at social issues. In public discourse, belief perseverance contributes to resistance to social or scientific progress. So People might hold on to stereotypes or misinformation about climate change despite overwhelming evidence. So, encouraging critical thinking, fostering open dialogue can help people consider or reconsider, their beliefs and make informed decisions. So, by understanding how belief perseverance and cognitive dissonance work, we can create strategies to address misconceptions, promote healthy behaviors, and tackle societal changes way more effectively. Now, let's summarize what we've learned. We learned about belief perseverance. That explains why attitudes persist despite contradictory evidence. We also talked about cognitive dissonance, which explains how attitudes may change to align with actions or vice versa. The key takeaway is that both concepts highlight the complexity of attitude formation and change, emphasizing the roles of motivation, discomfort, and cognitive biases in shaping our beliefs. So that's the essential knowledge you need to know for 4.2, attitude formation and attitude change, for the CED question number 2. And that was explain how belief perseverance and cognitive dissonance apply to attitude formation and change. We did the question number 1 on a separate video. So if you haven't done that one yet, you might want to go and listen to that one as well. So hopefully you understand and have a better understanding of belief perseverance and cognitive dissonance now. And I'm hoping that this will help you on your unit test, or if you're studying for the final exam. I wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I am so happy to answer any questions that you might have, or give me any feedback if you have a chance to do that. That's also super helpful for me. So please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for me. Helps me a lot. Thank you so much, and see you next time.